So my name is Carola Puustili. I'm the electricity company's segment president for Schneider Electric. And when I'm trying to explain to my old mother what this is I'm doing, it's almost impossible. But if I should resume it to you, I would say that I spend my life, or at least my working life, to make utilities more profitable by using our technology. Today, I have the pleasure of having on stage with me three of our esteemed customers, all experts in managing the grid, and they will share with us the impact that four of our important trends have on their business and on their strategies. I will present them to you in a couple of minutes, but first, I would like to talk to you about these four trends. After the session, you will have the occasion to ask questions to our panelists. Does that sound okay with you? Yes? We can change, because we are a flexible company. But let's get started. So the first trends I'm going to talk to you about is about the world getting much more electric. So if you compare 2040 with 2020, there will be 48% more electricity demand. And if you compare it with 2015, it's actually 70% more electricity demand than in 2015. So it's huge. This electricity demand, of course, is coming from the increase of population, 1.5 billion more people in 2040. It's also coming from increased living standard. And the demand is not equally over the world. For example, in Europe, where I'm coming from, it's rather flat, or even decreasing in some countries. In Asia and in Africa, the electricity demand is soaring and will keep soaring for the next 2 decades. 2/3 of this increase is actually coming from Asia. So how can we consume almost twice as much as energy at the same time as we need to make sure that we reduce the emission from fossil fuels? And how should power system industry adapt to this huge increase of demand? Hopefully we will have some of the answers during the session with our panelists. The second trend, I will talk about digitizing the end, but I will talk about decarbonization first. So the decarbonization is, of course, coming from the pressure of global warming. We need to reduce the greenhouse gases in order to keep the temperature in control. So that is something that is extremely important. And energy efficiency technologies will, of course, play a role. It's often more cheap to work on using better energy rather than investing in new capacity. But the big game changer is the huge investment that we are having in renewables. According to Bloomberg, last year we had $280 billion investment in renewable generation. And that amount will continue to be invested year after year. I would say that in 2040, 80% of the additional capacity will be in renewables. And that's a huge amount of money. Me personally, I think that decarbonizing the energy industry is one of the most important steps we can take in order to minimize the impact of global warming and major disaster in the environment. The next trend I wanted to talk about is about decentralization. So decentralization is coming from regulations, it's coming from the need of decarbonization, it's coming from the cost going down with renewables, and it's also coming from the need or the lack of network or reliable network. Interesting fact as well is that studies say that 57% of consumers say that they are ready to invest and become power independent or power self-sufficient. So this opens up a very excited new world of prosumers that will push for the need of microgrids. We shouldn't forget about bringing access to energy either. We need to make sure that the people that don't have access to energy today in rural areas, Africa and Asia, can get the same living standard as us. 65 million in Asia don't have access to energy. So that is really big. So historically, we can say that generating, transmitting, distributing, consuming was quite a simple business, linear, not too many players. That is not the case any longer. So going from passive consumption to active prosumer behavior is changing everything. And I think we will discuss that in a couple of minutes. The last trend is digitalization. So we have finished what I call the season 1 of digitalization, which is connecting people, you and I, to the internet. And now we are living the season 2, which is connecting objects to the internet. And in 2020, which is basically tomorrow, there will be 10 times more objects connected to the internet than people. So the question is now, how can we manage and how can we monetize this huge amount of data available from Internet of Things? I think these 3Ds are actually brutally changing our business models, and especially for electricity companies. Will your business tomorrow be to generate, transmit, and distribute energy? Or will you make your money out of managing data? Let's see what our panelists have to say about that. So let me introduce on stage. First, I will introduce Mr. Ferdinand Balgatas from Meralco. Welcome on stage. You're welcome. You're responsible to plan, digitize, and implement the digital transformation in the Philippines. And you are serving more than 6.5 million customers.
And growing.
Yes. In the Manila area and generating almost 8 gigawatt. Correct?
Yes.
7.4.
To be exact.
Thank you. So, Kun Ponsakon, Savatika. Jindi Tiroi Dai Rujaka.
Thank you.
Almost. So, Kun Ponsakon is from PA. You are responsible for system planning for 19 million, almost 20 million customers.
Yes.
And 20 gigawatt, and that is the whole Thailand?
No, just only PA service area. The whole Thailand include MEA around 30 gigawatt.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Mark Vincent from South Australia Power Network. Welcome on stage. You are responsible for developing and implementing the future network strategy and managing the dramatic changes anticipated before 2040. 850 consumers and 3 gigawatt. Very much welcome. Please have a seat. So, we're going to have half an hour approximately to discuss different subjects. And the first question I would like to ask is, of these 4 trends, which one is the one that has impacted the most your company and your strategy? And what have you done to counterpart that? Maybe Mark, you would like to start, or yeah?
Okay, thank you. So for us, all of these trends are impacting on SA Power Networks, but the most significant trend for us is the one about decentralisation. Can everyone hear that okay?
I cannot hear you.
So in SA Power Networks, we are the electricity distribution business in South Australia.
Yes.
Which, for those of you that don't know Australian geography very well, we're basically down the bottom in the middle. You can think of that. As we said, 850,000 customers. And even though we have about 3 gigawatts of peak demand on our network, our typical demand is more about 1.5 gigawatts or so, and it can drop as low as 1 gigawatt because we actually have really quite mild weather a lot of the time. Now, the reason that's important is that we have round about a third of our customers that already have rooftop PV. So 1 in 3 customers have rooftop PV systems, total of around about 1 gigawatt of capacity of distributed generation already. So although we talked about potentially 12% by 2025, at certain times over the next few years, we expect to have 100% of our state demand being supplied by distributed generation. In addition, as a result of a number of government incentive programs, we anticipate having up to 100,000 customers with residential batteries also over the next few years, which presents an incredible shift in the mix of power generation in the state. And I think it won't be, most of you would realise that actually you cannot power a whole state from just rooftop distributed generation without some really significant changes in the way that you operate things. So our challenge is twofold. One is at a global statewide level, how we can maintain stability of the power system when we're potentially generating more uncontrolled rooftop solar than the actual demand in the state. And secondly, at a local level, so within our local distribution networks, how we can actually absorb power flows that are sometimes going upstream at even higher levels of power than what they were previously going downstream to meet customers' demand. That's the significant challenge that we face over the next 5 years.
Thank you so much. Ferdy, Sir Ferdy, would you like to say some words on which trend is impacting you the most?
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, Meralco, for the benefit of those people who have not yet known about Meralco. Meralco is the leading distribution company in the Philippines. While we occupy only 3% of the land area of the Philippines, we generate almost half of the GDP of the country. So that's how compact is our franchise. And there have been so many challenges in operating this utility. Just recently, the Philippines was badly hit by the recent typhoon. And while the typhoon veered away from our franchise, we still experience several power interruptions and some flooding. But in the recent years, maybe 2 decades ago, we have embarked on the, we call it initially as distribution automation, wherein we commissioned our first SCADA way back 1994. And then this part of the smart grid journey, and just about 2 or 3 years ago, we embarked on what we call digital transformation for the company. And we discovered the area of digital grid operation, digital asset management, digital field worker, digital enterprise, digital customer interaction, and digital products and services. But among all these initiatives on digital transformation, digitalization of the data, those transactions, really a main challenge. While we have actually implemented SCADA, we're getting also data from our IEDs. We call it intelligent electronic devices, generating thousands of information every hour, every second. So harvesting this information is really a big challenge. Besides these devices, we're also installing some dissolved gas analytics and other substation condition monitoring devices. And going out into the field, we're installing several line sensors and devices. While the goal is really to increase our visibility and control on these devices. And just this year, we're also installing distribution transformer monitoring equipment in some of our DTs. And right now, we have around 100,000 smart meters already installed or deployed into our customers. But similar to other utilities, the goal is to have all our customers remotely monitored. And having, even our crews are currently equipped with mobile devices in transacting their work. And not only our employees, but also our contractors are also equipped with these mobile devices. And with this explosion of information coming from field devices, customers, and all these field devices, the challenge now is how to manage this information, how to get insights from this information with this gargantuan level of information. So getting the insights will be a big challenge. And besides this, there's also a challenge on how to keep this data correct, complete, and current. And I'm sure all of us are facing this issue on data management with this explosion of information from field devices and from everywhere.
Thank you for sharing.
And also, I'd like to add also that besides this information is how to keep the people managing this information with, for example, right now we have some aging workforce and we also some millennials, how to balance working environment between the millennials and we call some of them Gen X or Gen Y.
Yeah, and I think you told me also when we discussed earlier that one of the challenges that you see is how do you keep the talents that you attract, the young people that you're attracting, how do you keep them in the company? How do you make sure that they don't learn and go somewhere else to another company? Huh?
Yes, actually, the company also embarked on a training facility where we call it Power Tech.
Okay.
It's an area or it's a training facility wherein our employees can test on new devices, experiment on new technologies. Just like what our chairman mentioned, we should sometimes we can fail, but we should learn fast.
Yes.
And of course, cheap.
So so test fast, learn fast, fail fast, learn fast, or deploy. Excellent.
So those are some of the areas that we're doing how to keep these young people, young engineers, young analysts, and
Within
to keep them challenged and engaged.
Changing a bit the image of the company on being a high-tech company, a digitized company.
We look forward to that.
Kun Saikon, would you like to share with us what you have?
For the PA Thailand, if the major impact on right now, I mentioned one thing is about the solar rooftop policy from the Thai government that try to to encourage the customer to install. But another side is a utility. We have some Git code to, I think it's a Git code to regulate for some because of the solar rooftop that you said will affect to the grid, right? But we have some criteria or Git code to block. I cannot say to block, just control and regulate accordingly to the capability of the transformer, distribution transformer. Just we have the limitation at one level. But the government think about that, solar rooftop is the future. And they want the investor to invest to install the solar rooftop in Thailand. But want utility to open the Git code to accept all solar rooftop that the customer want to install. That is point. But maybe not directly to decarbonization, but even every country engage with the Paris Protocol, right? That to reduce the carbon emission, I think for the Thailand around 30% in year 2035 or 40. Cannot remember.
36 years.
Yeah, 36.
36. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But it's not the it's just a reference to say that the company responsible for the society, right, to reduce the carbon. But in terms of cost, if the price of the solar rooftop dropping down rapidly in the last 5 years, I think almost 60 or 70% already, right, in the last 5 years. And attractive, the customer can install and easily to find the place to install the solar rooftop. That everything want to install more, right? And some product from China come. It's quite really cheap and effective price that to implement the solar rooftop in Thailand right now. Another thing that right now we have some company want to promote the solar rooftop. They offer that if you install, we guarantee to reduce 25% of your electric bills is quite huge, you know, because if you think about 25, it's possible to do almost if you check the plan factor allow 15% or 16% only. If you can reduce just only like that, right? 15% or 60%. What comes is a 25%. They want to reduce the demand charge. Demand charge is another factor for the big customer that they try to reduce on that. That's a point they want to promote. And how is implication for the utility, right? That's really important that we cannot create the Git code to block anymore because everyone try to install the solar rooftop, right? What we want from the customer is we want to know how much they install the solar rooftop. It's one critical point because of we can design the system to support that the solar rooftop install. We want to know how much they produce the electricity from their solar rooftop. We want to share the information, might be related to the digitalization, right? Because if you blocking the high, they install, but will affect to not only their own customer, right? The essential customer will affect because of Git will collapse in case of the dynamic or in case of stability of the Git, right? That we need require to get more information from the customer. Maybe use the IED device to collect information, and we need to make the planning with the customer. Just like the energy resource management is a trend of the future. That and another thing, I think another program is a demand response program, right? That demand response program will help us to manipulate the generation at the customer side, just like if we can emphasize what the period of time that we want to support from solar rooftop. But somehow, right, if we want to do like that, we need to have the energy storage, right, with the solar rooftop. Because of solar rooftop, we cannot control the time that they inject the power in the grid, right? They inject the power when it's a daily, right? Not only in the evening or in the midnight. But if we have the solar rooftop, that's easily to manage. This is 210, how we can mitigate the problem with the solar rooftop. That's what for the Thailand.
Thank you so much for sharing. Good. If I can ask a question again to you, Mark, to start with. You've gone very far in Australia and very fast, I think. But what was the main roadblocks and the main challenge you had when you started implementing your digital strategy?
Okay. So our challenge, because as much as I presented the take-up of solar and batteries and so forth as a problem, it is equally a solution. It's going to inject a whole lot of incredibly cheap energy into the network that will drive down prices for customers, decarbonise, and that's a better outcome for the community as a whole. So our challenge is how we can maximise the value that customers can get from their investments. So, however, to do that, there's a few things that we think we need to do. So, first up, as I said before, we've got a 1 gigawatt generator, which is actually the largest generator in the state currently. And by the time customers install batteries, our second biggest generator in the state will be their battery system. So virtual power plants have aggregated customers' batteries, about another 500 megawatts or so. And I don't know about you, but does it sound like a good idea that our largest 2 generators in the state have no monitoring and no control?
Wow.
I don't think so. So our challenge is to actually get some level of management capability over those systems. So what we're trying to do, what we're planning to do, is going forward into the future, say, look, if you want to install one of these systems on the network, you need to have a minimum level of monitoring and management. By management, what I really mean is an ability for the network business to set caps on your export, dynamic caps. So we'd like to maximise those. If possible, we might like them to be as high as 10 kilowatts, but on certain days when the demand's very low, we might want to reduce them down to 0 even. So that's the goal. But coming back to the challenge is it's not an old-fashioned utility problem, this one. It's not something that our backroom engineers can be working on their own in isolation, just deciding what the best solution that is. These systems are being installed by customers. They're making the investment. Installers are involved. Technology companies are doing the aggregation for them. We have retailers that are trying to sell that energy into the market. We have a system operator that cares about total security of the system as a result of these systems. And we have tech vendors, the Teslas and Sonans and so forth, that want to maximise sales. So what we actually need to get these things forward is to get a whole lot of vested interest with very, very different drivers in the room to solve a common problem for the community, which is how we can maximise the value from those new systems. So our challenge is, in the olden days, you could sit in a back room as engineers and solve problems. In modern times, you need to get a whole lot of people in the room to jointly solve problems together and come up with solutions that work for the community as a whole. That is an enormous challenge compared to the world we faced in the past. The other little bit that I'm sure will mean something to some people in the room is also all this action is happening in the low voltage parts of our network that typically we didn't have to manage at all. So we're used to managing in the order of about 1,500 medium voltage, common language circuits, 11 kV circuits. We've got 100,000 low voltage circuits. So there's just this exponentially larger amount of data and digitisation, and, et cetera, where we can actually understand the characteristics of those circuits and work out how much, what we call hosting capacity, how much of these distributed resources can be attached and still have a network that's operating effectively.
So aligning a lot of resources, a lot of people in the same directions. Thank you for sharing. And any comments on that from Ferdy Ponsacorn?
For the digitalization, I still worry similar like the miracle is a aging worker or maybe existing worker. Normally for utility, right? Normally we recruit electrical engineer. It's not the IT engineer or computer engineer. When we move from the traditional to the digital utility or something, digital transformation, right? The process you change, right? Yeah. If you saw on that, the process you go into email, you go into app chat or something that, and the process will change, right? Yeah. The bill, maybe the bill one, right? In the past, we will print the paper. Right now, we change to digital bill. Yeah. It's a process, will change. If you look at in the side of the utility, process is change. We don't do some document. Maybe we need to change to the digital form or do something. That the aging staff or maybe electrical engineer might not familiar with this process, but we need to adapt this one. But take some time to change or to accept the digitalization. This one obstacle. And second is, if you know, when we learn about the power system engineering, right? It's only single way power flow from the generation until distribution. But right now we have another source from distribution level. Might be at the low voltage level also, right? It's a chain of rapidly study of the thing, right? Because when we design, we look at the maximum possible scenario that happen, but sometimes it's not, maybe not critical, right? Because we want to block everything because of the limitation. But when you use renewable energy, maybe it's not maximum because vary time to time and fluctuation or some period. Just maybe we need to do some risk management or do some something that might be statistical technique to do development to do and have some agreement to make the criteria. It's more like I think like the financial company do some guarantee for the customer. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe in the future we don't sell the electricity anymore. Maybe we sell the service. Just like the guarantee, the service that we deliver to the customer. Any kind of the energy or any time of the kilowatt, any time of the service. Or maybe that you mentioned about the information, right? Information might be, I think if you look in the future, right? Digital adding is increase the company value, right? Because if the company have the digital transformation, have the digital process, we add the value of the company. Every utility want to move to like that because we want to provide some. But somehow, we are the electrical engineer. We don't have the IT engineer. We need to hire the consultant to support how we can get the service for the IT, just like the service for some energy efficiency at home or some recommendation, how we can provide or service of the IT information. That is another landscape of the business that we need to do in the future because of at least we need to have some information from their solar rooftop, right? We need to get some more information, but not all the time that you mentioned. We cannot get all 24 hours every 7 day, but we need to do some statistic calculation or to do data analytic to analytic. That's what the point have to make the critical to the grid, and maybe have agree with the customer what point that we can guarantee you or what point we can accept the risk. Something like that. It look like a financial institution company. That's just my idea. But
So you're going to be a banker in the future, what I'm hearing.
no, just
Thank you, Fonseca. And any addition, Sir Ferdy?
Well, actually, this issue on data,
Yeah.
it's now even in the electric industry. There's now what we call a overlapping or convergence of what we call IT and the OT. So with this convergence, actually, there's some blurring of the boundaries of these technologies.
Yeah.
Even on the data analytics, just imagine, there are now new professions. For example, there's new job for data scientists, data analysts, data architects, which way back decades ago,
Nothing to do with you.
there's no such job. So, this just like what you mentioned, there are some data that, for example, or information that you need instantly for making decision, especially if this relates to control, if this relates to monitoring the power system. So, really, there's what we call, and we are all familiar with this, the three Bs.
Yes.
The information will have its velocity, its variety, and its volume. So that will be a challenge. It's beside, in the past, we're talking about the flow of electrons in electricity, but now the world is changing, it's evolving. It's now a flow of information.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So it's information technology merging with the
operations
operational
technology.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the recipes of success, the way of moving forward with digitalization, definitely.
Well, digitalization is one of the directions or strategies to address some of the concerns of the industry as well as the customers. But just like what I mentioned you a while ago, coming up with the digital strategies or anchoring on technology alone is not a good direction. We should first come up with anchoring it in the corporate vision and mission, and before we can come up with what we call digital strategy. So, like in our case, our company mission is to be a world-class company and service provider of choice, considering this changing customer demands, changing regulatory directions, and even the climate change that's also affecting our industry. And also the challenge is how to future-proof the network, the distribution system, the infrastructure, as well as all other IT and OT systems. Like what I think I mentioned this also, that technology is the enabler. But there's sometimes technology will disrupt.
Yeah.
So how to address this will be a big challenge for us in the electric industry.
I think you said also that one of the recommendation you would give to the audience here, if you could, would be that in order to have a strategy on digitalization, you first have to have alignment on all people in the company, as you said, on the values, on the vision?
Yeah, actually, we should come up with a program from the vision and mission. You should come up with programs, plans and programs, and strategy that is aligned and vetted by the stakeholders. This
Yeah.
include our customers, the regulators,
Yeah.
and even the management of the company, as well as there's really a value of communicating this to our employees, our partners,
Yeah.
our contractors. Everybody should align and adhere to that digital strategy.
Thank you. And anyone else who want to share with the audience something on how to succeed in the journey of the digitalization and integrating renewables? Yeah, let's see if you first have some recommendations, and then we can ask some questions to the audience. We have a couple of minutes left, so
First, a quick comment on attracting talent to our organisations. I think that certainly the conversations I have with our young engineers is that sometimes they came into our business because they actually couldn't get a job anywhere else. Having said that, they come in and they say, oh my God, this is one of the most exciting businesses going through one of the most exciting transitions ever. Like, if only I'd have known, this would have been, my first preference, not like a plan B or plan C. So I think our challenge as an industry is to kind of promote that excitement outside to say, hey, there's some pretty cool stuff happening here, come on in and work on it with us. I think that's quite a challenge. I think broadly, what you would have heard from what I was saying is what we're really trying to do is just old-fashioned maximising our asset utilisation. It's just in a very, very different way than it used to be. It's catering for two-way flows of energy rather than one-way flows. And to do that, we need much, much better asset information than we once had. And of course, that's enabled by digitisation and IoT and all these other kind of really cool things that are happening. So I think that's all of our challenges. Whatever our specific objectives are as a business, I think it comes down to the same core. Can we get much, much better asset information, asset intelligence that lets us squeeze that extra mile out of our assets? I think the other kind of comment I think is applicable to everyone is our industry is getting so much more complex than it once was that it's not good enough just to have single people working on problems. We need teams working on problems, multidisciplinary. We need to involve customers. We need to involve vendors. So I think that's the other takeaway I think makes sense for all of us is it's how do we bring more people inside the tent, which is kind of what you're saying too. How do we bring people inside the tent to get them to help solve our problems with us? Because we're going to get much better value from everyone if we do that.
thank you so much for sharing. Confosa, do you want to say something as well?
I need to mention one thing is customer. I don't know for any country, but for my service area, they have because our service area in the rural area, right? Is many old people live in the rural area when they retire from that. Maybe some don't want to use the digital, just like want to have the paper bill or something. That you mentioned need to alignment when you do some digitalization, right? Not only the management, the staff, and also the customer. We want to see at the customer want to use the digitalization. But I think the new people, the millennium generation, they want to use smartphone. But you look at who will pay the bill. Who will pay the bill right now? For my customer, almost I think more than 70%. Just go to the our office to pay the bill and get the bill is a paper, right? That we want to do the digitalization, but we look at the customer also, right? Not only the top management, all of the staff, and also customer. We need to look at. But it's a 10 because of if the future next 10 years or next 20 years, the millennium generation will going up to be pay the bill, right? Because they have the family, they have the responsible for the family. Maybe they want to use the digitalization, but this depends on the generation to generation.
Thanks so much for sharing. So if I summarize, we have 3 countries with very different. See if you still hear me. Very different challenges, very different stage of development, but a lot of things are common. We all agree this is a real disruption. We all agree that electricity and the energy world is very exciting, and we're happy to be here. We agree that we need to make a convergence between IT and OT, and it's not only IT, OT, it's people. It's about people. If we should succeed, if we should be successful, we need to be aligned. The whole EcoStruxure need to be aligned. So I really like your comments and your sharing. I think we can give them a big applause. Thank you so much. Kapkunta. And we still have a couple of minutes if you want to have some questions and answers. Questions? Yes?
Can I ask a question? Okay, guys, if you don't mind, I thought it was very interesting your comment on.
We don't hear you.
Can you not hear me?
We don't hear you.
Oh, I thought it was very interesting your comment on alignment about having people not just in your organisation but in the marketplace aligned with the vision of your company. I work for Schneider Electric. I was wondering, from a vendor perspective, from the companies you work with, do you see that alignment? And what would you like to see from the marketplace to make sure that you are aligned moving forward?
I think the staff utility need to learn from the supplier or the technology provider, right? We want to see the trend. We look at in the detail that the technology provider can support the utility activity, right? But not only PA or any utility can do by ourselves. We need to support from the tech provider, right? But I cannot say what we need to track about the technology evolving on the time to time, right? Maybe I not actually say that we want to do move like that because many times we have the new problem occur, right? And when we saw that any technology can solve that problem or not, maybe it's not in our field. Just like we have the solar rooftop, the government want to relax of the pocket code, right? Maybe it has a political problem. And another thing that if we want information from the solar rooftop, one from the inverter, right? We need to have cooperate with the supplier, right, to provide some information. But that needs only the marketplace. We want to look and send some information to the supplier or tech provider. What we want to do, what we want to get, what is the problem for all. If we going lost the revenue and we go bankrupt and your supplier or tech provider, you cannot sell anything, right? That is support each other. But we need to inform or learn from you also. That is my comment.
Thank you. I think, Sir Fodi, you want to say something as well?
This is a journey. It's a long journey. We need partnership from utilities or companies like Meralco with technology providers. So since this is a partnership journey, we need some sort of, can we call it intimacy? The more you know about our requirements, our customers' requirements, the more you can offer technologies and solutions that will address the problems. And there are times you can also offer solutions and technologies that are not within our sites or in our horizons. You know the industry, you know the technologies, you know the roadmap. You can offer it to us if we both understand that this will address some of the majority of the customer concerns. We're more than willing to partner and let's implement those solutions. But since this is a journey, there's some humps and bumps along the road. We can experience problems, but as long as we know where we are going,
The true north.
yeah, the true north.
Yeah.
It's for the customer and for the country.
Thanks for sharing, and I just want to add something when you say that we invest 5% of our turnover in R&D, but as we discussed earlier, this is R&D we want to do with you. This is not R&D we want to do in our office, closed in our small globe. We want to do R&D that is customized to you as well. So I really take that invitation to continue to work close with you, Sir Ferdy. Thank you. Mark, any sharing from you? Yeah. We have a couple of seconds more, I think.
Okay.
French time.
I'll just say exactly the same as I always say to Schneider. I think we want solutions, not products. Sometimes we want products, actually, but often we want solutions. To the extent you can understand our business drivers, our challenges, you're going to be in a much better place to provide those solutions. So I think it's get tighter with the businesses. And I think the other thing is, because you see so many businesses, you can play a role in connecting the dots. So, I think that's what we expect is, gee, I know you've got this problem. Well, there's this business over here that has a similar problem and solved it really, really well. And that is a tremendous opportunity you have by virtue of seeing right across the whole industry. So I think that's the additional piece of the puzzle you can play.
Thank you so much. I think the time is over. I'll take the occasion, first of all, of course, to thank our esteemed customers for attending and talking to us. I want also to thank all of you for having spent 2 days with us. I hope it is well-spent days during this summit. We haven't had too much time, but if you have some more questions, we have people all over Asia who can answer your questions. Meanwhile, you can also contact me, and I'll put you in contact to the right people wherever you are, and you can count on us for transforming your industry in this very exciting journey of digital transformation. Thank you so much.